Okay, now we're recording. All right, here we go. Good evening, everybody. Well, it's actually evening for me. I'm not sure when you're watching this. It'll be on the recording if you're actually seeing it. I'm the only one on here right now. So we're going to zip through this, and several things I want to touch base on tonight. I would be on here for a couple of hours, but I won't. So I won't do that to you. There's several things we cover this week, and I do hope you get a chance to look at your presentations and videos and things such as that as we move into week 4. Right now, as I mentioned last week, we're finishing up week 3, so we're halfway finished with the course, 50% finished with the course, with this accelerated course. So it goes fast. You got to keep up with it, and I hope things are going well for you. It seems like things are going well for most of you. So one of the keys of the subjects of organizational psychology, industrial and organizational psychology, is job satisfaction. It's kind of a big deal. I did a dissertation on job satisfaction, so it's something that I'm very interested in. I know a little bit about it, so I like to talk about it. So a lot of times people make this assumption that the more money you make, the more satisfied you are in your job, and that's just simply that's not supported by the scientific evidence. If you make very low wages, you may be dissatisfied with your job, but after a certain point, money no longer becomes a motivator. After all, once you make enough money that your bills are being paid, and you're able to put some money back for retirement, and you're able to have some money for discretionary spending, and maybe go on vacations and things like that. Money does not motivate an employee. After that, it's not a strong motivator, let's say. Other things are strong motivators. Responsibility, giving a person responsibility, a chance for growth, a chance for continued education, a chance to lead, challenges, and something that they enjoy doing, and job control, which basically that means autonomy, and loosely means autonomy. If you paid attention to the work of Daniel Pink, there are 3 things: purpose, mastery, and autonomy. And those 3 things really are what motivate employees. They're the best motivators. He's got a great video out there. So pay and benefits, they're important. Again, if you're not getting, if you're working for minimum wage and you are trying to raise a family, whatever state you're in, it's not going to be very easy. In fact, it's going to be almost impossible. So that might make you dissatisfied with your job, but that is not going. But making then, so you get up to a wage, whatever that might be, in your area that you can support your family. Then more than that, to say I'm going to give, if for instance, if a CEO is making $500,000 a year in his job, and they say we're going to give you another $40,000 if you will stay and work overtime this weekend. It just doesn't. It's not enough for them. It's not a hygiene factor. But if you say, I need you to work this weekend because it's important to the company, and we're going to be able to grow and take over more market share, now that's something that motivates that CEO. Interesting. I won't spend a lot of time with it, but it is a very interesting concept. I'm just going to back up 1 second. The other thing that, again, these are called hygiene factors. After a certain point, money is a hygiene factor, a term coined by some psychologists. Benefits, vacation, insurance paid for, company car, those things become hygiene factors, as do coworkers. After a certain point, if you're not getting along with your coworkers and it's a toxic environment, that's very that adds to the dissatisfaction of the job. But after a certain point, there's no one they're going to bring in or anything like that that's going to make you that much more motivated. So so for those not CEOs, you look, are the tasks that the employee is doing, are they enjoyable in some way or another? Do employees enjoy working together? Or are they outwardly unhappy? Another thing, and this someone had posted this week, I think maybe even just today, I think I responded today, earlier today, that they were explaining how the job they're in, people are showing up late for work without any kind of a consequence from the supervisors. They are taking time off, and sometimes taking time off without even calling in to say that they're not going to be there because they're sick or whatever the reason may be. So here's a situation where the rewards are not given equitably, because you have some of the associates and employees that are showing up on time, they're doing their work, and frankly, if the other workers aren't there, the employees that are there are probably covering for them in some way or another. So that would mean that the rewards and the resources are not given in an equal manner. Another thing that adds to employee job satisfaction is there a chance for growth or challenge? You know, sometimes you think, wow, this is great, I don't have to do anything or worry about anything. But after a while, you get bored in your job. You're there for 8 hours, 10 hours a day, 40 hours a week, 30 hours a week, whatever it might be. So you want, from time to time, you want a chance to grow, to learn more, to get better at your job, to get better as a professional or a tradesman or whatever the case may be. And is there a challenge there? That while you might enjoy not having a lot of responsibility and a lot of challenges, overall, it doesn't add to job satisfaction. It's, you know, if you find another job that's more exciting, you're probably going to go there. Then there's, on this slide here, you can see there's various ways to do that, giving them employee feedback, which I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. A variety of skills, a job rotation, so each employee gets to know the other employees' responsibilities and jobs, things such as that. Okay, how to increase job satisfaction. Okay, first of all, you can talk to people, and there are different assessments. We talked about assessments recently, like is it good to give pre-screening assessments for IQ perhaps, or personality tests, or specific skill tests. And I think most people, a little dry, sorry. Most people think that some tests are okay. I think most people in this classroom thought, you know, it can be a little bit much at times, but they can be very valuable. I want to talk more about that in a second. So you look at some things, okay, especially if this is an issue in your company, you look at just general life satisfaction scales, and you can offer that. It's a shortest. There's different ones, but there's some short assessments to find out if employees actually are just satisfied in life anyway. If they're not, they may not. If they have high life dissatisfaction, you know, job satisfaction may be hard for them to come by. And just want to go back to the assessments, because some of you had mentioned that people can manipulate the test, and to an extent, yes, that's true. But these tests, you know, the people who design these tests, they spent tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop these tests to minimize that. I won't say they eliminate it, but they're able to minimize that through the questions. And you ask yourself sometimes, why are these questions repeated? You know, on a test that you're taking, like a personality test or an aptitude test, it's asking the same thing, just different words or different way to ask it, and that's why, to minimize the manipulation of that. Okay, another, this slide's actually very good. Eliminate dissatisfiers. Okay, what would be a dissatisfier? Well, it depends on the job. It could be noises. It could be a lack of natural light. It could be the parking lot not being maintained. It could be the culture of the customers that come in, if you will, like the organizational culture that allows customers more free range and you know, doesn't set a tone of congeniality. If you're ever on the phone, and I'm sure you are many times, and you'll hear a recording come on and say, this call may be monitored for quality assurance. Well, you know, the reason they do that, there's evidence out there and studies that have been done that show that when customers, clients call in and they know that they're being monitored, and the reason the recording says they're being monitored really is to judge the employee's performance. But we know that when that happens, customers also are more polite and more cordial because they know that this might be listened to some other time. So that adds to customer congeniality, if you will. Another thing is to sort of it's to build that culture, to hold family events, to hold friendly competitions at time. Now I know this takes away from productivity to an extent. If you're going to stop and have an extra long lunch so people can have a whatever it might be, a trivia game or whatever have you, or a tug of war, whatever the case may be. But it builds morale, it increases job satisfaction, and gets the productivity back through more engagement of the employees. Okay, increasing humor. You can put little notes in people's on their office walls or on their doors with a sticky note, notes of encouragement, and giving that. One of the greatest motivators is informational feedback. So that is not evaluative; it's informational. Like, Sally, I really appreciate how you use humor to de-escalate that angry customer. Sally and Bill, I really want to thank you for getting together, and you stayed after 5 o'clock yesterday to finish this project, which was important, and we were able to have our meeting on time because of the extra work you put in. So it's very specific, it's informational, and it's based on behavior. So it's not like, Sally, I like you because, no, it's not that. So I like the behavior you chose. Sally, I like that you used humor to de-escalate that angry customer, whatever the case may be. Another thing is surprises. One of the greatest motivators is, the unexpected. And it could be personalized. It could be a card, unexpected card, just to let someone know that you appreciate them. Or it could be people come in on, a workday morning, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, whatever it is, to breakfast, whatever it might be, a nice healthy breakfast, or that they were not expecting. So some of those kind of things, maybe like a raffle, things like that. So these are the things that really make efficient and effective companies who they are. What really, and I've said this in my responses to you, why more companies do not employ this is beyond me. This is not hard to figure out. Well, I shouldn't say hard to figure out, because it's not just based on what we think we know. It's based on research. These are based on studies. These are based on people who have actually gone sort of in the field, if you will, like you kind of did for some other things, and studied this and have come up with these things that we know. For instance, you measure an employee's job satisfaction on Monday, okay, then on the 1st of October, and then time goes on and there's no other changes. And then on the 16th of October, you got all those employees, you measure all their job satisfactions. You may have 100 employees. And then on October 16th, on a Friday, you surprise them with a nice healthy breakfast and a motivational speaker, and they don't start working like for an hour later or whatever have you. And then, a week later, you measure their job satisfaction again, you see that goes up. So those things, things like this have been done. So we know that it works. So like I say, it's not a secret. It's not that hard to implement. Why more companies and more organizations don't do it really is surprising to me, and it has been that way for a long time. But there are some companies that actually do it. So not only do we have the field evidence or the experimental evidence, we also have the real world evidence, because those companies that do this are seen as the more effective companies. They have less turnover, less employee turnover. They have higher satisfied customers. They get more market share. I'm talking about companies like Apple and Google, IKEA, some of the others out there. So from retail to technology, there are some hospitals, I don't know any off the top of my head, but there are some hospitals and healthcare districts that do this as well. So anyway, I could go on and on about that. I mentioned this about hiring satisfied employees, eliminating the dissatisfiers. One of the big ones I mentioned, I didn't mention this before, but like I said, parking lot, whatever it might be. One of the, I think one that people really, if you work in an office anyway, the copy machine. We had this in my full-time job. We had a copy machine that was always breaking, and when it wasn't broken, it wasn't working very well. So that's a huge dissatisfier, because here you are, you're trying to get work done, and you can't make the copies for the staff members or the students that you need to have it done for, and that's a problem. Mention this. Provide proper feedback. I mentioned how to do that. Another one is increase opportunities to socialize. There are, depending on the kind of job that you do, the kind of work that you do, sometimes it's very sort of intellectual type stuff, like figuring out problems. We have more and more of that now, less and less manual labor. But if you allow that by creating social spaces, which seems counterproductive, doesn't it? Like, I want people talk, I want them in their office doing their work, but sometimes problems are solved in the hallway or in a lounge. Now, granted, you can't just run like as if it were a country club per se, although some may disagree with me. Increasing that increases employee job satisfaction, which will save you in the long run through decreased turnover and higher productivity. Humor is another great way. Everyone's not the biggest fan of jokes or what have you, but you'd be surprised how many people work better when lighthearted things are going on around them. And I mentioned the surprises already. The other thing, and this gets into leadership, and we talked about, is it right to fire a person? Certainly it is right to fire someone. Oftentimes, and we've had the case studies of this, where a company will propose to be a Christian organization or an organization that runs on Christian principles. For instance, the University Central Christian College of Kansas, okay? So I don't know, I'm an adjunct there, so they hire me to teach classes, and I teach my classes, and that's it. I don't have other responsibilities, really. I go to meetings sometimes and things like that, but in terms of committees and things like that. So if someone, and any employee, is not doing their job and could be disrupting and or just may not be skilled enough to do it, well, yeah, and sometimes they'll come back and say, you can't fire me, you're supposed to be a Christian organization. Well, that doesn't mean you don't terminate someone who's not able to perform their job. Because if you hang on to that person and they end up draining resources away from others, then you're not serving the other employees and the other community that you need to serve. But before you let someone go, I think it's safe to say that it's not a bad idea to see if maybe there's another place in the organization that they might be more suited for. And maybe that way you can both be happy. You keep the employee, they tend to appreciate that, and now you've actually filled a position that maybe had been left unfilled. Or maybe it's just a matter of getting more training to teach that employee the proper way to do his or her job. Or sometimes that's not enough either. Even when you terminate someone, and I know this can get contentious at times, but when you terminate someone, there's a way to do it. This idea, you're fired, like we had that television show some years back, and that typically wasn't. You could say that was, he listened to people and made his decision, whatever. But typically, you're fired, and that's it. You're on the streets. Well, there's a way to do that, to counsel someone, to say, listen, this didn't work out for you, but I do notice you have certain skills. Here are some resources. There's unemployment, perhaps. Employers pay for an unemployment insurance, so if someone loses their job, they can not be completely without any money for a few months. That's an insurance. That's a benefit that's paid for. It's not an entitlement that it's not a handout. But meanwhile, while you're doing that, you might want to get training on this, or you might want to get a certification in computers. I see that you like to kind of work on your own here. Maybe if you learn some computer programs, you'd be more marketable. So there's a way to do it. I won't spend much more time on that. One of the things that we do know from experience and studies, when people have low job satisfaction, they tend to be absent more. They tend to miss more work. They tend to come in late. They tend to leave early. They certainly don't want to stay around longer. So when you look at job satisfaction and productivity, there isn't a real strong correlation to that. Somebody can have poor job satisfaction but still do an okay job. Somebody could have high job satisfaction and still not be that productive. I use this example. For a period of time, for 3 or 4 years, I taught in Florida what we call the GED. It stands for General Equivalency Diploma. And that's for students, high school students who dropped out for one reason or another and didn't get a high school diploma, but now have decided they want to come back and study for their high school diploma. So I taught that class. It was a position with the school board, and it was Monday through Thursday, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. I love that job. And this part of the reason is this. I was in grad school at the time, and oftentimes students didn't show up. Students would drop in whenever they felt like it. If they didn't come, there was no kicking them out. They were always welcome back. And in the very beginning, when I first took over that position, I had one student come in for like the first 3 weeks. She came in for about 45 minutes. I helped her with some stuff. For the most part, she didn't want a lot of help. She was working on her math. That's what she had to pass. And then I sat there and I studied for the next 2 hours. So I had a high job satisfaction there, right? I was getting paid, nothing much I could do with no students there. But I liked it for different reasons by the end. But I did work well with the students. I did help them a lot, and I built the program. But the point is, there are those who would just be happy to come in. Listen, I got to be here in case somebody shows. They're paying me to be here, so I'm going to read the comic books, which is not what I did, or whatever the case is. So the job satisfaction would be very high, but the actual productivity would not be high. The productivity in this job would have been how many students are learning to practice and take their GED. In that case right there. So that's not necessarily productive. In some cases, people have a high job satisfaction because there's not a lot asked of them. So there's not a lot of productivity. So, but what we do know is, overall, if several people in the organization have low job satisfaction, that's going to impact the overall productivity of the organization, because there's going to be more absenteeism, there's going to be less engagement, there's going to be more people coming in late, leaving early, things such as that. So as a global entity, that is very important. Okay. And I think, then we got the employee excuses for missing work. The employee engagement, the associate, that's one of the things that you see a lot about in the literature, and people out trying to sell their programs. They increase employee engagement, which is kind of the catchphrase right now. And obviously, absenteeism is a problem in many organizations. So we want them there. We want them engaged in solving the problems that they're charged to solve. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and cut out of here. I believe I covered everything that I wanted to cover. I just mentioned this. You can have consequences, or you can make it more enjoyable for them to be at work. And making it more enjoyable is much preferred and gets you better results. So with that, we're going to have our Bible verse today of let me think. Oh, let's do. We're going to give. The 23rd Psalm. We're going to go to the 23rd Psalm. Just that's all you don't have to write down the whole thing. Just Psalms 23 or the 23rd Psalm. That will be very good today. So that will be for if you want to get the extra credit for watching this. It's the 23rd Psalm. So I'm thankful and I'm grateful for each of you. You are my prayers, you're my thoughts, and as are your families. And I'm going to let you get out of here and enjoy the rest of your week. All the best.